G'day guys, I've just finished work on what is quite possibly the most epic World Eaters display board of all time, and I wanted to share that with you guys today. So today we're going to go through a step-by-step on how I built the display board, and then also an in-depth showcase of my apocalyptic World Eaters army. I'm very excited to share this with you guys. It's been a long time in the making, and let's get stuck into the video.
Exalted.
G'day guys, I've just finished quite possibly the most epic project this channel has ever undergone, and that is constructing this apocalyptic display board for my World Eaters army, including this gigantic epic fortress. So today what we're going to do is a little bit of a tutorial and a walkthrough of how I went about building this gigantic thing, followed by an in-depth showcase of my apocalyptic World Eaters army. G'day guys, check out our merchandise at exalted40k.com, including sets of range rulers with 9, 6, 3, 2 and 1 inch faces, as well as 1 inch markings all the way along, making quick and accurate measurements a breeze. Rectangular blessings trackers for convenient record keeping, and chain axe blessing trackers for when merely taking records is not good enough. Dice and dice trays that in tandem ensure your rolls do not betray you like a certain someone on the killing fields of Scalathrax. Objective markers for an exalted gaming experience that are just begging to be drowned in the blood of friend or foe on the battlefield. Show your support for the channel and head over to exalted40k.com to equip yourself as an exalted wargamer today. G'day guys, we're heading to Bunnings. I've got Trigger with me. We're going to go buy some equipment so that we can redo the backdrop of my YouTube videos. Alright, all important glue. We're getting some 2-part epoxy, nice strong hold. Grabbing some foam board, as you can see, I've got a ton of sheets. And we're going to redo the backdrop of my YouTube videos with the new Exalted logo. Red paint. Gold paint. Alrighty guys, here we are. We've got our foam boards, we've got our rulers, our knife and our Sharpie, and the first step is to mark it out. Alright, we've mapped it out, we've cut out the first layer, and now basically we've got to cut a couple more layers to layer it up to give it that shape. It's coming along well. Alright, now we've got the top layer and the back layer cut. Now to cut out all of this middle stuff, which is going to be a bitch. Alrighty, we've got the layers sliced. So we've got one layer that's going to represent the gold trim, one that's going to be the red base layer. Now it's time to throw a black coat down to seal it all in. If there's one thing I'm known for, and you can ask anybody, it is impatience. And not only did I forget to film a update after painting the base coat down of black, but I've also gone ahead and sprayed this top coat over without giving the black really enough time to dry. But she'll be right. You can see here, this is the base layer, which I've done a black to deep red to bright red gradient on, just with rattle cans. Makes it a bit easier. And on this one, the gold, which is the edging, I'm not 100% sold on this, but I've gone from a black into like a brassy bronze color up into a bright gold, and hopefully that'll contrast and pop out really well when laid over the top of that baseboard. So now I'm actually going to give these some time to dry. Hopefully the wind doesn't blow them away because they're very light. And I'll check back with you guys soon. Alrighty guys, here we have it. Fully painted now, finished Exalted Icon for the background of my YouTube videos, with Gorechild and my other chain axe hanging below it. The only thing left to do is assemble the skulls. So one of the best things about Halloween is you can buy bags of skulls. And I bought a fuck ton of skulls. So I'm basically going to pile them up all the way around there, going up the sides as well, so that we can have a bit of a centralized background. And then I'm thinking of redoing the background video for the channel and changing the angle of it, so it'll be more angled, something like this, or more straight on, with me, you know, positioned here, as opposed to the current version, which is like, you know, on a full-on angle. I might do it on a, like maybe a slider angle like that or something, so that you get a little bit more. But the challenge with having it on an angle is you don't really see the minis, because when it's on an angle, you've got this wall covers half of the minis in that case, whereas if you have it more straight on, you can see a bit more. I've been toying with the idea of trying to find lighting to go inside those cases so that you can turn the lights off in the room and it doesn't have all the glare on the glass. But when you have this many shelves, that turns out to be a pretty big fucking project, so we'll see how we go with that. But yeah, happy as fuck with the Exalted Icon. G'day guys, want to join us and become an Exalted Wargamer? Then check out our Patreon. Show your support for the free YouTube content with a monthly supporter subscription. Think of it like buying me a beer to say thanks mate. Gain access to the Exalted community, including our Discord server where we discuss everything from tactics, strategy, list writing advice to memes, banter, and hobby updates. Join Team Exalted for more direct coaching and advice in preparation for upcoming events, and get tailored advice for key meta environments and matchups, or help working through some of the more challenging and complex aspects of Warhammer 40k. Or become part of the Exalted Inner Circle for access to private one-on-one coaching, including video calls and more, a dedicated coaching service aimed to provide mentorship and drive real improvement. Check out exalted40k.com for more information and become an Exalted Wargamer today. So I recently bought a bunch of blue foam to make this Exalted logo as a backdrop for my YouTube channel, and I fucked up and I bought way too much foam. Just so much fucking foam. So I decided with the leftovers what I was going to do was build myself a fort. So this is going to be a little fort that I built that's going to be usable as a table to play on, but obviously for narrative style games. Also usable as a display board, because each of these segments is an independent board that are all going to slot together. So the idea is there'll be one section here, which is a city fight board. There'll be one section here, which is the fortress walls. There'll be one section here, which is going to be the fortifications, the bastions, etc. And then one section here that's going to be the front sort of battleground, and that way it all sort of slots in together and creates one nice big board that also doubles it as a display board. And this is to complement that display board. I'm not sure if you guys remember it, but I built a big cornate castle, which is in a bit of a state of disrepair, but it's the same dimensions as this. So the idea is going to be that I'll be able to go, that much of it is Imperium, and then I'll be able to do a few more boards over here, which will be Chaos, and we'll be able to have a big fucking Chaos versus Imperium showdown between two epic fortresses. And the idea is going to be sort of like, this is the Imperial fortress, and there's like the warp has ripped open, and this Chaos fortress has emerged, and all these Chaos cunts are coming out, and there's a big fortress on fortress battle. It's gonna be sick. Alrighty guys, bit of a hobby update. I decided the fortress wasn't big enough, so I've added this entire back section onto it. Obviously very much still a work in progress, but so basically there's this board here, is this entire back section from there down, and then this second board, which goes from there to there, is this lower section, so they're separable. And then we're going to have this section here, which is going to be your missile systems and your defenses. And then we've got a section here that's going to be ruins, and I'm basically going to build like another 4 sections so that I can fit my entire collection as one big fucking epic display. And I'm going to take that to Arc Fest, which is going to be where I'm going to showcase this, which is like next year, mid next year. So I've got some time to work on it, but the way I operate is once I start something, I kind of can't put it down until it's done. So put in a fair bit of work. The idea here is that we've got, I'm going to make this look like a landing pad. I might even elevate that a little bit, just a landing pad for a Thunderhawk. I'm going to have the landing pads there. And the whole idea of this is going to be that all of the models will be removable, so you can, put whatever army you want to display on there. And long term, I might look at making it fit for purpose for these Marines, because I've got a decent sized Marine army, and make it so we can have like an Imperium versus Chaos, and then work that display board into the mix as well. But yeah, the idea will be that, if I want to go to a tournament and just use a single display board, I'll just take out this middle section and use that, because it's probably got most detail on it. It looks good independent, it doesn't require that backdrop on it, but that backdrop's kind of cool as well. And then I'll basically just deploy my army in that space there. But the bigger I go, the more I can extend out. And then I'm also planning to make it so that there'll be a middle section here that'll be playable for competitive games. So basically the idea will be you'll have like this epic backdrop, but then you'll play your actual competitive game here, which will have, your traditional L-shaped ruins, etc. Built out of this stuff. But it'll basically, have that epic backdrop. And we'll do some narrative battle reports on it, which will be pretty cool. So I've still got a lot of work to do. I've got to add all of these little bits. I've got to add all the way along this parapet and along the top there all the way around. So that's the next stuff that I've got to build out of foam. Then I've got to cut out that door and put a door in there as well, which is going to have that same sort of opening hatch on there. I've got to decide what I want to do with this open space here. I'm thinking of just putting like an Aquila or something like that there, just so that it's not a blank piece of foam. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get big bits of wood cut to put on the edges here, just to seal in all this fucking sloppiness. So it'll be a solid piece that'll go across there. And then the idea will be that at ArcFest I'll have behind this section here, will be curtains all the way along. So you'll basically be able to view it from this angle, because the idea is from here you can see into that section, into there, whereas if you look at it from this section, from this direction, it's not quite as impressive, because things that are in behind there will be obscured. So building it so that it's viewable, or designed to be viewed from this direction. I've also got to get a fuck ton of plasticard, because this foam, I don't like this texture, I don't like the way that it's all shitty. So I'm basically going to coat the whole fucking thing from top to bottom in plasticard. I'm going to try and find some textured card. Either that, or I'm going to roll out some polyfill or something to sort of just coat the whole thing, give it a bit more of a concrete kind of looking texture. And that's probably going to be the fucking single biggest job of the lot, but it's got to be done. And hopefully that'll also, when I do that, that'll help hide a bunch of the cracks and a bunch of the just the shittiness like down there. It's a bit shitty. So yeah, seal all that in, add some texture, add a bit more detail to it, and then it's time for painting. Alrighty guys, time for an update on the fortress. As you can see, construction is more or less finished. So we've got the back section, elevated platforms, there's going to be a Thunderhawk landing pad up there, some cannons, then there's going to be this section here, which is going to be for staged models, probably a couple of Storm Eagles parked on there, and then the rest of the board. finished off adding all these parapets, or whatever you want to call them, and then giving the entire thing a big coat of essentially a gap filler. And the idea there is it's going to give it a little bit of texture, and it's also going to seal it. Now, before anybody jumps into the comment section and says that it looks like their 7th birthday cake, two things. One, how fucking awesome was your 7th birthday? And second, I'm obviously, once this dries, I've only just applied it, once it dries, I'm going to sand it down to smooth it out a little bit, and I'm also going to apply some sand and bits and pieces. I've got some mesh coming in, which I'm going to use to create like a mesh floor. So there's still tons of texturing that's going to take place, and then also once it's painted and dry brushed in the grays and things like that, it will not look like a cake, but it kind of does at the moment. And then the only other thing is this side here. You'll notice that it's still exposed. I'm basically going to get a nice solid piece of wood cut to seal that all in on this side. That's going to attach to the base plate so that it gives a little bit more structural integrity. It'll make that look nice and clean, and also it means if somebody bumps into it, they're not going to fucking explode the whole thing, because it is, after all, made out of foam. So I'll be putting in some wood sections to give it that extra sturdiness. But yeah, that's where we're up to. I'm really fucking happy with the way this is coming along. It's a lot of work, but it's going to be very cool when it's done. But I'm going to jump in. The next step for me is to get the PVA, water it down, and coat the whole fucker in that as well, and then throw some sand at it to give it a bit more texture, and also further seal it in. And then I'm going to leave it for 24 hours, and then I'm going to come back tomorrow and see if I can start throwing some paint at the motherfucker. Alrighty, next stage of the build is complete. And let's just say that there's a very good reason that I built this thing out of foam, and it's the exact same reason that I dropped out of year 10 woodworking class, because I'm fucking bad when it comes to this sort of shit. But basically this part of the project was building a box to go all the way around, just to give it that structural integrity so that if people bump into it, they're not going to, break through it. It also cleans up the outside a little bit. It's not perfect, but it cleans it up a little bit. And now I'm going to lay down some textures. She's all coming together now. We've thrown down some details and she's almost ready to be painted. So first off, sand on this section here. I actually ran out of PVA, so I couldn't do the sand on this section, but that's fine. And then I've added these this mesh sheets to the top, which are going to be painted in like silvers. So it's going to be like the fortress is all going to be like your concretes, but then we're going to have silver or like bolt gun metal for those floors to give it a bit of a different look. And we've done that on all 3 tiers as well. And then we've still got the texture underneath that should hopefully show through when we paint it, so that it's not just a flat surface. It looks like they've laid down the material over some form of foundation. And then the other thing we've added is these pipes that run the length of the front of all of those walls. And the idea here is that I'll be able to 3D print some little banners that are going to hang off of them. So when you're approaching the fortress from this direction, you've sort of got that symbolism. But those banners, I'm going to basically make them on little hooks so that they can hook on to those, that hook on like so, and that way you can interchange them depending on what army you want to display. So while I'm displaying my World Eaters on there, there'll be World Eaters banners, but if I want to put Space Marines on there or whatever, I can put their various banners, so it'll be a bit more flexible. Because the idea is, hopefully, for now I'll use this to display my World Eaters, but long term I would like to make a corresponding board that goes this way, and that section would be like the Imperial Guard being attacked by World Eaters. But for now, I want to make it so it's flexible, so that's the idea with those banner supports. And then the only other thing I added was a couple of minor details. There's this piping section here. This was more just me fucking around with straws, really. I had a bunch of offcuts, and I was like, yeah, let's see if I can make them into a fucking, you know, little, like that's some kind of pump station or whatever. And then there's also these pipes down here, just again fucking around with them, see what I can do. I'm always conscious of adding too much detail to a display board because it's supposed to display the army. You don't want people to spend the entire time just looking at the board. You want them to be like looking at the board and going, wow, and then looking at the army that's displayed upon it. So I'm conscious of that. The next step is to paint the motherfucker. I'm going to throw several coats of black down, and whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to be 3D printing a bunch of details to go on here, like, you know, a little control panel to go there that's going to be used to, you know, open the door, you know, the banners to go along. And I'm also looking to get some kind of gargoyle slash aquila slash some kind of eagle statue to go on each one of these. So there'll be one there, all the way along there, and then along the top as well. And the idea is that'll just sort of tie it all together. So that's where we're at. I'm really fucking happy with the progress. Tonight's mission is going to be to throw some paint down on it, throw down the first coat, and then fire up the 3D printer, and we'll take it from there. Alright, it's an absolute fucking ripper of a day, so we've busted the fortress out and thrown our first coat of black base coat down on it. That'll seal in all the foam, and then I'm going to do a second coat over that once this dries, which it's very rapidly drying in this sun, and that will seal it all in so that I can then use spray cans on it. One of the things about this foam is if you put just standard spray cans on it, it sort of eats at the foam. You have to put down a water-based base coat first, or use water-based spray cans, which you can get, they're just harder to find. So yeah, brushed on all the black last night, brought it out here, did a second coat this morning, and I'll do a third coat before I hit it with spray. But as you can see, it's coming up quite well. There's a few bits where the paint's not sticking, like to the straws and stuff like that. That's going to be a spray paint job. Brush on water-based paint is never going to stick to that sort of stuff. But it's been pretty good. I was able to like water the paint down so that it seeps in to all the cracks and stuff in this, which is also sort of operating as an additional layer of adhesive. It's like this is not moving at all, which is fucking perfect. Because gluing down sheets like that is always hard because it doesn't really have a solid surface to adhere to. But that's all coming up really well. It's coming along great. I'll hit you guys back with an update soon. Alrighty, here we have it. So we've got the base coat of black down, and then we've also done some highlighting with greys and whites to get this basically at a position where it's ready for the detail work. So I've got some texture added to this front panel. I'm going to do some line markings on this road that comes out of the gate there. So that'll be cool. And then we're basically going to have ruins here and there, fortifications in there and there. And then we've done, you know, your basic grayscale sort of highlighting to sort of give this some texture. And basically all I do is I can paint the whole thing black, then a very light spray over it with grey to give it a sort of textured, patchy kind of look. You don't want to do it too thorough of a job. And then what I do is I do a sort of just a focus on the tops of it with a can of white spray, so you can sort of see it there, how it goes from, you know, your darker blacks down the bottom there up into lighter whites at the top. And that gives it a sense of light and shadow, and it also helps to distinguish the difference between the top of this level and the bottom of that level. It actually makes it so that they stand out from each other, whereas if they were grey the whole way through, it would look uniformed. So we're making some really, really good progress on this. The next stage is to paint in some details whilst the 3D printer and whatever gets the various detailed components that I want to add to the build. I also had over here in my bits box, I had a bit of a rummage, and I found some cool shit, like these Icarus autocannon things were in my bits box just chilling. Then there was these from the Defiler kit that I didn't use because I used the whatever the other sponsor is on the Defiler. But like, I'm thinking that I'm going to make a mount so that these can get mounted like there. So it's like an anti-aircraft gun. So that's kind of cool. Just little bits like that, just to add a little bit of detail to the build. And another couple of cool things that I found in my bits box whilst rummaging around were, just fucking lost it. This most random collection of parts over the years. I've got these little searchlights. Again, I think these were from the Defiler kit. And I'm thinking that they can go on top of the, on top of the fort like that. So it's like looking over the gate. And then also, we've got these, don't know what the fuck that was. These heavy flamer kits from the Defiler. And I've got 3 of them, so I'm thinking one here, one on the other side, and then one in the center. So that way it's like, if the fortress gates are being stormed, you're gonna get fucking toasted by heavy flamers, which could be cool. The question is though, do I want to glue them down and sort of resign this fortress to being dominated by chaos, because there'll be, heavy flamers and Reaper autocannons and very obviously chaos based emplacements, or do I want to leave them off so that it can be utilized as Imperium? I'm still yet to decide how I want to approach that, but that's the spirit of this build, is that I'm sort of making it up as I go, so we'll see where we land on that one. Alright, so I've added a little bit of terrain to the fortress. We've got the 2 whatever it's called, Aquila strongholds there. We've got a couple of Vengeance batteries up there and some cannons on the roof, so we've added a little bit of terrain to that. But my plan was to basically have this part come out and have a standard 6x4 playable terrain table. Because obviously you can't play on that, that's ridiculous, right? So that's going to be the backdrop for these. There's that one sheet there, and I'm going to get 2 more to make a 6x4 inch playable terrain. And that's what I've built over here. So I just got to paint them and whatever. But I've basically taken all of the little ruins and bits and bobs that I had kicking around my bits box, and I've made these ruined buildings, which will sit on this section here. And the idea is that they will be able to fit neatly either side of the road that runs down the middle. So we got a building that'll go there, and there'll be one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, right? So there'll be all the buildings. But also, you'll notice a very familiar shape to these, because I've designed them so that whilst being displayed for display purposes, they fit together like that to make a cool building. But I've also made sure that they are... sorry, I should have planned this part of the video out. They are the same, more or less the same dimensions as your GW, or your WTC style ruins. So like, you've got your standard L-shaped ruin, and then you've got your standard, people use these perspex for their WTC games. So as you can see, that perspex aligns perfectly with that card, and that ruin aligns close enough with the WTC style ruins. And that way, we can have it all set up as a cool display that looks like a sick ruined city, but we can also, when we extend that out, we can have a playable space where you can actually use WTC style maps. Now, obviously, there's a few bits and bobs that are not 100% representative, like that's not even really close to this. But the purpose, the main functional part of the WTC ruins is actually the base. It's actually this here, because that is what you hide behind, not necessarily behind the wall. So things like that will still serve a functionally similar role to a WTC style board. But unlike the WTC style boards, this is going to look fucking sick. You know, you got the big cathedral over here, the big church windows. You know, we've got these standard ruin sort of buildings. There's a little bit of diversity in the buildings as well. Like you've got, you know, these taller ones, really tall ones. You got these chapel-y looking ones, and then we've got this one, which is a bit more of a, you know, manufactorium kind of power station look. Now, obviously, these are choppy as fuck. They're you know, just bits that I had kicking around in my bits box that I've managed to throw together like this. But one of the design choices that I made during this entire project from the start was that I more or less wanted to make it with kind of like with what I have. Because I find that if you put yourself with limits on what you can do, like I'm not going to run out and buy more kits, I'm not going to run out and do a ton of 3D printing and print a bunch of bastions. When you put restrictions on yourself to mainly only use what you already have, it actually allows you to just go, cool, this is the best I can do with what I have, so I'm just going to shut up and do it. Whereas if you take those boundaries off, all of a sudden you'll spend infinity time trying to find the perfect way to do things, because with no boundaries, you can, in theory, achieve perfection. So if you're somebody like me who's a bit of a perfectionist, with no boundaries, you're going to end up going to infinity. Whereas telling myself, well, I'm going to see if I can make a WTC table out of what I've already got, meant that, yeah, sure, I'm mixing some, like, you know, more cathedral-y parts with some more manufactorum parts, but who cares? And yeah, so the next step is to throw some paint on these bastards, and I also need to track down a couple more boards in this thickness, so they can make the 2 extensions, and then paint those. And then basically what I'm going to try and do is spin this table and this table so that I can make one long table that runs along that's going to have the whole thing on it. And then I'm going to try to find a way to store this motherfucker. It is worth noting, I think I discussed this already, but I have made it so that each one of these parts does separate. So like that fortress stops there, and that one's a separate piece, and then that one's a separate piece, and that way they should fit in storage up there with any luck. Yeah, alright guys, well I'm gonna grab some spray paint. I'm gonna have to go to the shops and get a few more cans so that I can spray these bastards, and I'll check back with you soon. Alrighty guys, here we have it. The build is now 100% constructed. There's still a lot of painting to go, but as you can see, we've got this section here with the fortress. I've displayed an army out on it, just bits and bobs. Obviously, there's still a fuckload of models to come out. I just wanted to sort of, you know, check that everything was going to work, and I'm pretty happy with it. And then you'll notice there's this empty section here. There's going to be more boards coming out here, which I've constructed on this side, with your city fight. So the idea is that those 2 boards there, and all of those boards will connect together into one long-ass board that's like 12 foot long, and the whole army will just be displayed throughout. And the idea is that it'll be obviously your world eaters coming out of this fortress, so it'll be all the mortals coming out here, and then into this city part will be the demons at the front. So the bloodthirsters, or the bloodletters, the blood crushers and shit, they'll be along the front, so it'll be sort of separated, but at the same time, one big cornate fucking army. And with all of this, it's going to free up a bit of space so that that doesn't have to be too cramped and have everything all crammed in on itself. We'll see if we can get both of them in the shot. And we'll be able to utilize those terrain pieces. Now, obviously, it looks pretty bland. What I'm going to be doing also is basically distributing some rocks and stones throughout to give it a bit more texture and a bit more detail. But the idea is that basically that's going to serve as the backdrop, and this is going to be an actual playable table with WTC style ruins made out of legitimate GW kits. So you can play an actual game of 40k with that as your backdrop. So now it's just the time to paint. Now I'm considering whether or not how much detail I want to put into the painting. That's still an open question, But for now, I'm calling her done. G'day guys, let's take a second to thank today's sponsor Adept Roll, a bloody ripper app that calculates expected outcomes across a variety of in-game scenarios with precision. With Adept Roll, you can input or import unit profiles to calculate probabilities of outcomes and apply modifiers both offensively and defensively within seconds, allowing you to make wiser and more informed decisions when writing lists and when making in-game decisions. Adept Roll is free to use, or grab the paid version, which is an inexpensive and packed full of fair dinkum features that will help you play like an exalted wargamer today. Thanks again to Adept Roll for sponsoring the video, and now let's get back to the show. Alrighty guys, so here we have quite possibly the most epic World Eaters display board you'll ever see, and we're going to break it down in detail and go through all of the models together. So you'll see that we've got the demons arranged up the front here. Then it goes into the mortals, including the Chaos Knights, the Brass Scorpions, the Lords of Skulls, ton of Rhinos, all the way up into the Berserkers, the Land Raiders, the Predators, and then the aircraft and all of the mortals displayed out here on this fuck-off epic fortress, this massive piece of terrain. So we're going to go through it all one by one. Well, not one by one, because that will be here forever, but, you know, unit by unit, so to speak. So you can see along the front here, you've got a ton of flesh hounds. There's like 30 odd flesh hounds there. And then they're followed up by some bloodletters. You'll notice that there's two different base types because I've updated my painting style since those first bloodletters. These first bloodletters are some of the first models that I ever painted, the ones with the grey bases. And then I updated my style for the ones with the black bases to give them those sort of flaming swords and that sort of thing. Got the Skull Taker in there, taking that prime position. Some free-handed banners. Then we've got all of our Blood Crushers and our Skull Crushers, the character ones. A ton of them. Enough that you can run 3 maxed out squads. I'm also a huge fan. This guy's one of my favourite parts of the entire collection. Is that Lord on Juggernaut. I got him way back before that was even an option, but I really love him. He's a Warhammer Fantasy model that I've converted up a little bit to make him fit with the World Eaters. And then going in line with the cavalry, I've got 3 skull cannons here. Now you'll notice that those skull cannons, instead of having the Maw on the front, I've got the Juggernauts on the front to make him more of a chariot, so that they sort of tie in more with the cavalry theme. So they're cool. I've got 3 Soul Grinders here, and these guys have all been converted with Bloodthirster bits to have big axes and Bloodthirster heads, so that they tie in more with the Khorne theme. And then we've got a ton of Bloodthirsters behind here. So we've got Angron up on the mountain there, up on the building. And we've also got Be'lakor hanging out with him there. You'll also notice that Be'lakor's got some conversions to include a lot more Khornate components on him, so that he ties in with the rest of the army. And then you've got Angron's entourage of Bloodthirsters. Now let's get a counter going. We've got 1 Bloodthirster, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 if you count Kabunda. So shitloads of Bloodthirsters. Who needs 12 Bloodthirsters? The answer is nobody, but also me apparently. I'm a big fan of the Kabunda model. I actually saw him at Warhammer World when I went there, and I'd seen pictures of him online before and thought he was somewhat unimpressive. But then when I saw him in person and saw how massive he was, I was like, yep, I have to have him. He's fucking sick. So that's more or less the demons component. Then we go into our demonically possessed stuff, and we've got the Exalted 8-bound along the front here. And then this whole building is just packed full of 8-bound. Tons of 8-bound there. We've got Spawn. These Spawn here are the ones that I was selling on Etsy for a limited period of time. And then we've got Spawn back here, which are a kit bash out of 8-bound and Spawn kits together. So they're cool. We've got this old Demon Prince here, which I used to use as Scarbrand before Scarbrand got his own model. And then we've got a new Demon Prince model at the front there, and then another older one at the back. We've got a ton of Warp Talons here, splayed out all over the place. 30 Warp Talons. And then we've got a Demon Prince who's got Warp Claws as well, because I used to run them together as sort of a demonic, Warp Talon cohort sort of thing. We've got a Blood Slaughterer down the back there, 3 Mauler Fiends, another Demon Prince up on the building there. He's that old school Demon Prince, one of my favourite kits. Let's just zoom in on him a bit there. Yeah, one of my favourite kits ever produced by GW is that Demon Prince. We've got 3 Brass Scorpions coming around the back there. I've tried to position them so the big models are along the back so they don't obscure everything, which seems to be working pretty well. We've got a Venom Crawler, a Lord Discordant, got some Raptors. You'll notice that some of the Raptors and Warp Talons have been converted. Let's zoom in on this guy here, so that they're, instead of touching the floor, they're sort of flying. They got a little flight stand, and then I've replaced their heads with little Juggernaut faces, which are taken off of the Lord of Skulls kit. The ones that are on the, where is he? On the side of the tanks there. I basically got a bunch of those and put them on them guys for heads, which are cool. We've got the bikers along the middle here. They're all converted to have sort of longer bars along the front there to make them almost more of a Harley kind of look. See it better on that guy there. And then we've also got this guy back here, who is my Chaos Lord riding a bike, and I converted him up out of some Mauler Fiend bits and some just bits and bobs that I had kicking around. And he's cool as fuck. He's back from there used to be a enhancement that you could take, or a relic, in a Khorne Demonkin army, where when the bearer was slain, you immediately summoned a Bloodthirster where they were slain. So basically I'd take him and I'd just run him straight into the opponent's army and dare them to kill him. And as soon as he died, I got a Bloodthirster, which was really cool. We've also got a ton of War Dogs, all painted up in a theme that's designed to go along with the World Eaters, whilst not being World Eaters directly. There's a bunch of Carnivores, Brigands, and Stalkers in there. Where are we up to? So now we get towards the middle. We've got the Lord Discordant over there. He's a really cool model. I'm a big fan of him, even though you can't take him in World Eaters. That's back from when you used to have to run him as CSM. Triple Forge Fiend. We've got a Chaos Knight over here with my first ever attempts at green stuffing, and a pretty heavily converted Imperial Knight to be a chaotic one. Pretty happy with him. Then we've got, where are we now? We're up to the Terminators here. So as you can see, we've got 30 World Eaters Terminators arranged in here, and they were the original 30 Terminators that I ran at the World Team Championships. And then over here, we'll get to those in a moment, but we've got 30 more Terminators. So total of 60, but that's the first 30 Terminators. Then let's go along the front here. We've got a bunch of Jackals. These are the most recent addition to my army, the Jackals. And you'll see why it took me a while to get these guys, but really happy with the way they turned out. Really happy with the paint job on them. They were painted for WTC this year. Here we've got 3 Defilers that have been converted to be Scorpions to go with the World Eaters theme, where basically all I did was take the like the canopy that normally sits there, took that off, put a tail on it to give it the same height, so there's no like modeling for advantage problems, and made them look a little bit more cooler than the crabs that they normally look like. So happy with those. Then along here we've got a bunch of different rhinos. So we've got these ones here are the 3D prints that I was selling on Etsy, but had to take those listings down. Thank you, GW. Then over here we've got 8 more rhinos, and these ones are the standard GW kit, but we've replaced the front of them with a Land Raider style assault ramp to tie in with that sort of World Eaters theme of running forward and charging. And you can see even the ones that I've 3D printed, those hatches I've taken off a Spartan assault tank to continue that sort of theme. What else we got? We got 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls here, all of them painstakingly edge highlighted, which is, you know, when you've got as many edges as these pricks have got, and you're doing 2 layers of edge highlight. It takes forever. But we've got those 3, and then at the back there we've got 2 Khitan Ravagers, which are the Cornwater Skulls on foot. And then along here we've got a variety of different Hellbrutes. So we've got these 3, which are your old school box dreadnoughts. These guns, again, I was selling them on Etsy, but had to take them down. Then we've got these 3 here, which are your Dark Vengeance ones that I've since converted. And then these 3 here are 3D printed Contemptor Dreadnoughts, modified up to have some cool World Eaters bits on them. So as you can see in here, they've got the crests on the helms, just like the World Eaters. They've got the shoulder pads, they've got the icons, they've got all kinds of really cool World Eaters stuff on them. And then there's a Leviathan Dreadnought to go with them. He's the big boy. So that's the Dreadnought side of things. Then we've got the other 30 World Eaters Terminators here. Now these are the ones that I was selling on Etsy. I sold a shit ton of these guys on Etsy. However, again, GW have taken me down. I'm looking into ways that I can find an alternative way that I can still give them to you guys, because I get a lot of people requesting them. And like, I'm not trying to make money off the back of GW or anything like that. I'm just trying to provide some cool stuff to people out there that are interested in cool stuff. So that's where those Terminators come into play. Then we've got Khan the Betrayer down here. Wouldn't be a World Eaters display without him, right front and center. And then he's got all of his Berserkers. So we go into this, there's a fuck ton of Berserkers here. This display board has well over 200 Khorne Berserkers on it. And we've got a few Master of Executions as well. We've got this guy down here. We've got this guy in here. We've got this lad up here. And then also there's a few other characters in there that could be Master of Executions. There's this guy here. He's an old school Chaos Khorne Lord. We've got this dude here. He's a bit of a special character looking guy. And there's a few other special characters dotted throughout the display. Then we've got 3 Predators with las cannons, autocannons, and a Vindicator as well. And then we've got these 3 Land Raiders. Now these are Icarus pattern Land Raiders. You can find him on Instagram, and it's a really cool conversion kit, 3D printed conversion kit that you can apply to your Land Raider. It's got some really cool features. I'm a really big fan of the skulls embedded in the front there and the Khornate symbol. I'm a really big fan of the World Eaters symbol on the top and the extended las cannon sponsons. Really fucking cool build, really easy to put together, really fun. So check out Icarus Pattern. Then we've got the Reaver Titan. We can't overlook this guy. He's somewhat of a centerpiece. He's a big boy, and he's standing right at the back there, ready to rain fire with his missile launcher and his Gatling cannon. And yeah, he was a big project to build just on his own. There's iron rods throughout his fucking legs to keep him up because he's so top heavy that he'll buckle under his own weight. And yeah, he's seen some battle damage over the years, but he's still kicking on strong. And then we get into the fortress itself, and this is the newest edition. This is the thing that I've spent the last few days constructing, which you will have seen by now. On top of it, we've got a couple of Storm Eagles. One of them, I'm not sure if it'll show up there, it will, called the Thunder Budgie. And that's because when I was building it, I was talking to my wife about it, because she always inquires about this stuff just out of morbid curiosity. And I was telling her it's kind of like a Thunderhawk, but smaller. And she's like, yeah, so it's kind of like a Thunder Budgie. And I was like, I am coining that phrase. So I decided to freehand it on the side of the vehicle there and painted a little picture of a little budgie in there. Let's see if we can zoom in on the budgie. Yeah, Thunder Budgie. So yeah. And then on top of this, we've got, these are CSM chosen loadouts. So with accursed weapons like power axes and combi weapons and plasma pistols and power fists, etc. But they're all made out of Heresy era World Eater plate with exposed arms and bits and bobs. And then each one of those squads, there's 3 of them. One here, one there, and then one down the back there. And then each one of those has their own Chaos Lord as well. who's again made out of that same Heresy era plate, but given a thunder hammer and a cool cape. I'm a really big fan of these guys. They came out great, and they fit the theme of the army well. They're like the elite Khorne Berserkers, and they're the ones that ride into battle in their Storm Eagles. Then we've got a couple Helldrakes up the top here. I have a third, I just haven't finished doing the edge highlighting on it, and the gold edging, trim. And as you can imagine, I'm fucking sick of painting gold trim, eh? There's been like, the story of my life is gold trim, and I just can't bring myself to do a third Helldrake. Like, the amount of trim on these guys is just absolutely insane. And because they're not competitively viable at the moment, it's hard to justify spending another week of my life painting gold trim. So they're up there, and then we've got along the fortress wall here, we've got all the Obliterators. Now again, CSM models from back when you couldn't play World Eaters as World Eaters, you had to play them with CSM. And yeah, they're there to sort of provide that fire support. And I think there's more than what is legal to take there, like you can't actually field them all in one game. And then we've got a few warp smiths in here as well. There used to be a detachment where the warp smiths and the Obliterators went together and did some crazy stuff back in, I think it was 6th edition. Then along the top here we've got the Thunderhawk gunship. The big boy himself landed on the top of the fortress there, and he is surrounded by an ocean of jackals, right? And this is why I was saying that it took me a while to add the official jackal models to my collection, because I have over 200 jackals already built and painted. And this is back from 8th edition, where Chaos Space Marines used to be able to take a ton of cultists and recycle them, and they'd get Fearless from Abaddon, and it was an absolutely toxic way to play the game, but it was very, very strong competitively, and for teams events, that's when I always bust out the cheesiest list possible. So that's what they're there for. So given that I had all of those, it was very hard to justify, despite the fact that I love the new Jackal models. Like, I love this guy here, and like, they all look so cool. But I just couldn't justify it when I had that many painted. But when that new box came out that had 8-bounded jackals in it, I needed a few more 8-bound, so I picked it up, and I'm glad I did. And then the last thing we've got is these three down up here. Now these are some of my favorite parts of my entire collection. It's the Charybdis Assault Claw ×2 and a Dreadclaw ×1. And I've got more of these guys. They're just painted in a different scheme. They're not painted in World Eaters, so they didn't get to make it out onto the display. But some of the most fun I've ever had is fielding those Assault Claws in games, because you used to be able to put 20 Khorne Berserkers inside, arrive from Deep Strike, disembark, move, then charge, and fight 3 times in a single fight phase. So you'd have 20 Khorne Berserkers would come out and just fuck your opponent up. It was so much fun. It's so exciting. So they're just like your drop pods. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the lore, they're really cool in that the reason the Loyalists had to reinvent the drop pod, and the reason they don't use these anymore, is because basically the machine spirit that drives these guys basically turned corrupt and would basically jettison Loyalists into space. So they would hop in their spaceship, they would hop inside the Assault Claw, ready to like make planetfall or to board another ship, and then it would launch from the shuttle bay, and then as soon as it got into open space, it would just eject them. And then be like, nah, fuck ya. And then it'd fly away. So they're fucking cool. They're like an evil, sentient, transport, which is a really cool concept. So that's more or less the entirety of the collection. And I'm fucking chuffed. I'm really, really happy with the way this board came out. So it's done in sections. So the idea is that basically, you would have seen in the video so far, but basically we've got one section there, one there, one there, one there, and then we've got 2 big sections over here. And then all of these ruins are done so that they can be a standard WTC style table, or they can be dotted throughout the display board like this to give the impression that there's an epic city that's fallen to World Eaters. And I'm gonna have this on full display like it is now at Arc Fest 40k, which is a huge convention here in Melbourne, and it's going to be cool. I'm going to have pretty much this whole setup dragged down there, which is going to be a fun one to set up because it took me a long time to pull all these models out, and that was when I was just pulling them out of the cases behind them. When I'm putting them in boxes and cases and whatnot, it's going to take fucking ages, so wish me luck with that one. But it'll be good to share this with the broader community and hopefully inspire some people to take their 40k to their next level and sort of don't be afraid to go big, you know? Like, one of the things that I've done, which I thoroughly, I don't regret at all, is I've always just, when something becomes no longer competitively viable, I keep it, and I just keep adding to the army. And over the years, you end up with something like this. If you just keep plugging at it. This is probably, 15 years maybe in the making. And you just add a couple of models every year, and you end up with the most epic collection. And there's so many memories baked into this collection. The Brass Scorpions, the amount of games that I've played with them, the Warp Talons, the Knights, the Blood Crushers, the Bloodthirsters. The memories are just endless. The early 8th edition Rhino Rush Khorne Berserkers was a ton of fun. The triple Land Raider list that I ran for memes and came third at a tournament was fun. There's so much memory baked into this army, and if you keep faction swapping, you probably don't get the same sense. So I highly recommend that you give it a go and try to get something epic going for yourself. So yeah, that's the showcase. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Alrighty guys, if you enjoyed that and you want to show your support for the channel, please like, subscribe, comment, all that good shit, and also head over to exalted40k.com where you can pick up merchandise to show your support for the channel, or join our Exalted Wargamer community where you can get coaching, banter, zings, memes. We have a ton of fun over there, and we also help each other get better at the game by reviewing and helping each other write lists and prepare for events and all that sort of stuff. So if you want to become part of an Exalted 40k community, head over to www.exalted40k.com. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.